In the Marines, we talk about force multipliers. Today, I'm bringing you the ultimate upgrade. She's a sister in arms, a Marine,
Oh,
Intel veteran who spent years in the dark room of the DIA and DHS, mapping threats and managing AI at the highest levels of the machine. But she didn't just stay in the matrix, she decoded it to save herself and her community. She is the COO of Astrolith, a quantum intelligence researcher and the architect of the Bees method. She's here to bridge the gap between 11D theory and the raw neurodivergent reality of 2026. Welcome to the terminal, L. Yonker. Let's get raw. So, with a background of Marine Corps, signal intelligence, SIGINT, and electronic warfare technician with over 6,000 hours of direct support to OIF and OEF, Operation Iraqi Freedom and Operation Enduring Freedom, an intelligence pedigree, managing AI programs for Booz Allen Hamilton, and provided critical supply chain risk intelligence to the Department of Homeland Security. Your current mission is the Chief Operations Officer at Astrolith LLC, focusing on quantum intelligence, ethical social engineering, and the Bees method for neurodivergence wellness. You've logged thousands of hours in high stakes Intel environments. How did your AUDHD serve as a secret weapon for pattern recognition? When did it become a liability in legacy systems?
so
And you can kind of open up and warm up so they don't have to
yeah.
be so brick. It's not it's not that yeah, it's not that serious.
Well, it's
It's
raw,
not that
right?
it is, but it yeah, I mean we don't have time to waste, so we do have to just jump into it and everything else can kind of fill in.
Exactly. So, I actually didn't know that I was ADHD until, um, goodness, it was a couple years ago, actually. So a lot of my pattern recognition, all of that, I just chalked it up to, I was a band kid. So, with doing marching band, we had to literally memorize all of it. So, you learn the music, you memorize the music, you memorize the steps, you memorize everything. So you could um, run a whole program without any interruptions, without tripping and face planting on the field, all that fun stuff. So when I decided to join the Marine Corps, I didn't even have a plan to until the recruiter came to my economics class senior year. And I was trying to figure out what I wanted to do.
Okay.
I had spent up to that point, I was musically focused. So I attended the um, Music and Leadership Conservatory at Tarpon Springs High School. And so I learned music theory. I actually sang in a couple of operas, all that type of stuff.
Did you find any
And
of that to help you out in the during wartime environments or anytime
yes,
during the Marine Corps?
yes. So again, all of it comes down to memorizing the steps and practicing what you're going to do. And when I started doing Intel work, it came relatively easily on learning the equipment and understanding just the patterns of individuals and when you're learning about different characters from stories and like how the history behind music and how music affects people, and you can very quickly realize the commonalities
Okay.
across um, whatever domain you're working in. So I let's see.
Well,
When
I don't want to be biased about Marines, but given that you recognize that pattern intelligence, yeah, early on, and then the Marine Corps kind of just layered over that, and then you find yourself in Intel. They knew you were best for Intel, and so then what about the transition out afterwards? As you kind of after you get out of the Marine Corps, you've done your Intel, and you start transitioning to that next step.
so transitioning into the next step was is a lot harder in a lot of aspects. Um, Probably like a year after I had gotten out, rather than when I first got out. So, um, when you're talking about the systems themselves, when I got out of the Marine Corps system, I quickly stepped into a job with L3, and they had just acquired some intellectual property where I was brought in to help set up the knowledge management systems, ensuring that as the intellectual property was going from an unclassified space to a classified space, um, it was identifying the nuances between classification levels and explaining that to individuals who might not know the third level of effects if a
Okay.
piece of information were to get out. And that was a
Okay.
lot of what Intel was to see, yeah, you'll have the piece of a puzzle, but if you can't tell how that piece is going to affect downstream, then that
Did you
piece
ever
right now isn't really helpful.
did they ever make you feel like you were an intelligent asset, or like like a resource, like directly, just like the same thing you're working for to protect and to decode, or that suddenly like you're kind of one of the same assets?
So I don't think I started feeling um like I was a pawn essentially until
That's a good way to
um
put it. That's a good way to put it.
yeah, um until further in my career. So with the Marine Corps, first off, my commanding officer for my the largest part of my deployment, or largest part of my career, um was flippin' amazing. Um,
How
he
so?
was he was a Mustang.
Okay.
So
Okay,
for
you want to
those
tell people? Yeah, yeah,
Yeah, so
please.
for those who don't know what a Mustang is, they are prior enlisted who went officer. And when you have an officer who understands the enlisted ranks, one, they tend to be able to relate a lot better. But with um with my commanding officer, he was one who would come and like sit down with the analysts and actually talk to you, ask you questions. He wanted to know, okay, what are you working on today? How does your brain work? How are you picking apart the pieces? So that way, it was a very, what's the word I'm looking for? Collaborative environment across the board. And when you have a really good leader, that will trickle down all the way through the ranks on how, um, everyone from, you know, the first lieutenants, second lieutenants, all the way through the senior enlisted. And we very much had a close knit group of individuals who understood what the mission was and they weren't afraid to have those tough conversations.
Would you say that because of that kind of that camaraderie that you had with your battalions and just the upbringing through your career, that it might have led you to you're part of the VA State Suicide Prevention Lead for Moms Demand Action. How does your tactical background inform how you handle the human dimension of loss and hope?
So I actually started working with suicide prevention right before I got out of the military. So the Marine Corps had just instituted, so that was 2010. They implemented that there would be a suicide prevention NCO in every battalion. So I was voluntold to fill the position.
Know how that
Um,
goes.
and at the same point, it was one that I had no problem. Like when I was approached, hey, we need someone to do this. Will you do this? It was oh, absolutely. Um,
Do you find yourself to be a natural leader before the Marines?
yes, yeah.
Okay.
Um, I have a natural ability to put individuals at ease, and I tend to, um,
I'm glad you
and
mentioned that because yoga.
yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Tell everybody about the yoga. Yeah, the
So I
implementation
started,
that you've used.
yeah. So I started doing yoga after I had my oldest, who is now 19. Um, and it was a way to slowly get myself back in shape after having her, but it more became the mental and just restorative element that just enabled me to stay resilient regardless of the difficult situations I was put into.
Okay.
So, um, I would do it in Iraq, you know, throw out um my green ISO mat and use that as my yoga mat
Okay.
in Iraq. And then um that kind of moved into um as things became more difficult and um technology and whatnot um kind of started to get, I wouldn't say more like scary because technology is a neutral. So if you have an individual who has good intentions, their use of technology is going to have good intentions behind it. If you have an individual with bad
First
intentions,
principles, yeah, first
exactly.
principles.
The
So
technology itself is not good or bad.
so how do we keep our human hardware from crashing in the 2026 high density info stream?
So that is where the bees method kind of came into play. And it everything that I put together kind of follows this idea of bees and understanding how bees have affected not just their environments, but the human elements as well. But it stands for balance, energize, educate, and sustain. And what that does is first, when you start with balance, you have to understand how your emotions are being affected both by people and by technology. And I talk about this a lot with my 15-year-old who loves to play video games on understanding when the games are starting to disable his emotional state, and then he can tell when he needs to take a break,
Okay.
and kind of talking through that element of when you're getting frustrated, when you're starting to feel all of those emotions kind of bubble, you know what? It's time to take a break, step outside, touch grass, create that balance, and learn how to keep yourself grounded.
So when society is looking at playing video games is just the ultimate like brain rot, and you flip the script and bygones be bygones, but using it as a method to create awareness. Go touch grass. Just the idea that you get to create a wedge in there to open up an opportunity to go touch grass and help them also gain awareness of themselves. That's the piece that's missing. It's not channeling everything into it's got to be this or it's got to be that. It's just life is life. We could spend our time talking about I've spending our time talking about going outside and how back in the day it was all good when my brother, that's who said it. My brother said it to me. So his daughter is 17 and she was going down a back path that's like a one way in the cut where my parents live. And she was going to go walk up to a closed little strip where there was a bridge. She's 17. And my mom's like, well, can you call her and find out if she's okay? And my brother was like, Ma, what happened to we grew up in the city, in Jersey City. I was like, bro. I'm like, we're not even talking about when you were like 7 and I was 13 and I'm taking you, we're going jumping through hurdles, getting to New York City and Times Square as teens and stuff like that, and kids, and just that times change. But to go back to the whole awareness and the opportunity of it, what's done is done, what's the past is the past. But so tell me, with so you use those opportunities and you more so help generate like life skills
Mhm,
ultimately.
exactly. Is creating that balance, and understanding the not just your emotional regulations, but the physical state of how you're feeling. If you're feeling off, okay, well let's talk through that. What have you been eating lately? What have you? and we kind of talk through what are the many reasons that your balance could be off. And then once we kind of move through understanding the balance, we move into energize. And that's understanding how movement and nutrition and social interactions and connections affect the individual. And every individual is different because, for me, I am extremely extroverted. Not that you can tell. But I I get energy from surrounding myself with the right people. And that's the other thing is you can there are individuals that just suck the energy out of the room. And you have
For a
to
second,
realize,
I lost my breath in my own room. The irony there, huh?
you know, and you have to understand how your personal energy and what it's used for and how it's used for. This morning, I was talking about how um, we'll use spoon theory or
Matrix spoon theory.
no, no, not matrix spoon theory. You have so many spoons, and once you're out of spoons, you're out of energy. So,
Okay.
or you only have
What
so
about
many
you
fucks to
can't have
give.
a spork? Okay, okay.
Same thing.
Okay, 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 gotcha.
Um, and it's that realizing when your energy is just low, why is your energy low? And how do you as an individual restore your energy? And that can be everything from how your daily medications affect you. We actually were talking about that the other day when I forgot to take my medicine before bed. I then basically wake up in a state where it's, I feel like I'm basically, um, why can't I think of the word? I just can't move. The energy I need to get my brain to get my physical movement going just to get out of bed sometimes. Um, that's one of the reasons why I've chosen to take medications to help me because I've noticed that that helped and was able to work with my doctor to make sure that those things are going to actually help the situation rather than create that brain fog or turn you catatonic. But even that, like, just like this conversation, our various brainstorming sessions, like, just fill me with
Here,
energy.
here's the $1 million question.
Okay.
Have you introduced the goats to the yoga class?
I have not. I have not. So I'm not a huge fan of it
What?
personally. And that really comes into as you look in and, you know, being as white as I am because I am very, very white, realizing that the um,
You
various practices and the indigenous practices that are actually extremely helpful. Um, I want to honor their original state and a lot of the like introducing goat yoga and whatnot, it just becomes like a yeah, it's fun to play with little baby goats. Don't get me wrong.
so is
Um,
it more a ploy?
yeah, it's more a ploy to get people to, come
Make it
than
look
rather.
make it look classy. Like
Exactly.
first class goat milk.
Yeah, I don't like goat milk.
I've had goat milk, and I've had goat milk at the Chow Hall in Iraq.
Interesting. Okay. So after energize, that the next is educate, and that is just what we're doing now and learning new skills, researching what works for others and helping others to understand what works for you. And sometimes that is like for me and my husband, we've had to learn how each other's brains work and operate. And our anniversary is actually in a couple, like in a week. And like, there's been so many times where we had to accept the fact that there are going to be things that the other one does that annoy us to no end. But because it is something that is how my brain works vice how his brain works, and dealing with that ego, which we've talked about before, of how the ego comes in
A black
to,
void.
yes, the black hole of the ego, and how
It's where everything
you
goes
know
to die.
you can't expect someone else to see the world through your eyes because they're your eyes. And with that, they're going to have a different perspective. And so they their brain works differently, their perspective, their experiences, all of that creates the conscious being. And in order to truly honor another person's autonomy, you have to just accept that there's going to be things that you can't change. There's going to be things where you can learn how to help the other individual, and you can learn how to, because you love them, you put up with X, Y, or Z because that's just one of their many idiosyncrasies and whatnot. So that's
So
kind of educating it. Hmm.
so given that you have the
Hmm.
intel mindset, how do you save lives in the community?
So with that is a lot of the education standpoint. I get out in the community because that's the first thing is you have to be a part of the community in order to help the community. And the first part, because we've lived here for like 5 years now, I think 6 years now. All right, so we've been here for 6 years now. And the first little bit of the, getting used to a new community is just watching the community and understanding how they work. What do they celebrate? What do they, um, how do they consume information? Um, and then learning how to bring your skill set to the community to help that community grow. And so now my daughter and my husband are both working for the county. So that is one way that we've started to integrate within the community. And it's a lot of just educating from, hey, this is what works for us, or will talk about each other a lot. And
Keeping it open.
yeah, keeping that open, honest communication and not being afraid to, in front of others, even say, hey, you know what? I got that wrong. I'm sorry. And I've had, um, when I was working in Georgia, I forget what it was I did, but Hubs gave me a call. And at that time, I was like, we were doing pass down or something. And so I had a couple of the like junior airmen and whatnot around me as we're talking, and I get a call. So I'm like, oh, hey, what's up? He's like, hey, did you do this? I go, yeah, I did that. And whatever it was, he's like, why'd you do it that way? And I explained it. He's like, oh, don't do it that way. We need to do it this way. I'm like, okay, yeah, no, that makes way more sense. I was wrong. No biggie. And he's like, all right, talk to you later. Bye. And hung up. And they looked at me. They're like, did you just tell him you were wrong? I'm like, yeah, I was wrong. Like the inability to admit your own faults. And even like to our kids, we apologize to our kids when we get stuff wrong. And that is something that was never mirrored to us. It was just we got to a point where, one, we didn't want to lie to our kids, and we wanted our kids to trust us. So if we want our kids to trust us, one, again, we don't lie to them. And two, we admit when we, are just wrong. And we take it as an opportunity to learn and grow and do better. And we allow our kids to call us out on it. And I think that's where with the Bees method, the S is sustain, to create longevity and consistency, is that open and honest communication to allow others to call us out on our bullshit, because we're not
Yeah.
going to get everything right all the time. And maybe we are, pissed off because we haven't been feeling well,
And
or
that's okay.
exactly. High pain days. That's another thing. Like, I will not even realize, because when you have chronic pain, the pain sometimes just becomes noise in the background, and you don't realize that it's affecting you until all of a sudden the smallest thing is setting you off. And now I'm angry because, someone left a shirt on the floor, like stuff
Yeah.
like that. And in order to create sustainability, especially within community, you have to be able to learn, understand, and grow together, and understand that, that growth is going to look different for each person.
And
So,
having that awareness. Okay.
mhm,
Great. So now, as we hit the 2026 singularity, you're at Astrolift building Celestial Fireboss Tech.
mhm.
How do we make sure we don't lose our humanity when the tech becomes quantum?
Okay, so I saw this question and I got so excited, because I don't think so. With quantum, you're not going to lose your humanity. You're actually going to find it. Sorry, my daughter needs something and she's the worst. She's trying to pantomime, and half the time I'm like, girl, just ask your question. I don't know what you're trying to, you know, convey to me at this moment. Anyhow, so quantum. I the road to quantum was life giving to me in that AI and AI is artificial intelligence, which means it's that. It's
For those that
fake.
don't know what AI means, artificial intelligence. Yeah, right.
Artificial. It is
it's
fake.
in the name. It's in the name.
Exactly. Not real intelligence. What it is it's a massive search engine that um and they've even proved how much it likes to be rewarded. And so as
For
the
the
very
for the masses out there, is it alive? Is it alive?
is it
Does it have
alive?
a conscience?
No, no,
Will
no,
it
no,
ever? Will it ever?
no.
Can we just silence that noise once and for all while we're here on It's Just Raw with the fairy godmother?
No.
Tell them why, please. Teach the world,
So
teach us all. Explain to us the science and
artificial intelligence
intelligence.
is fake intelligence. What intelligence is, and as we're on raw. What does raw stand for, good sir? Because it's an acronym. There's a
Rec-
reason it's in all caps.
recognize authentic wisdom.
And that's what intelligence is. It is not the information itself. You can have all the information in the world and still have no idea what's going on. It's
Facts.
learning how to not just leverage that information, but to put that information to work that it's going to actually produce value. And in that, as we move to the quantum realm, and I was reading Maku Cacao, I think is how you say his name. Quantum Supremacy. It's a book. Um,
Mm, that
I
sounds
thought I
good.
had it around here, but I can't find it right now. Um, I started reading that book, and it was talking about this God algorithm, and I'm sitting here looking at it, going, like, okay, classical computing is binary. It's ones and zeros. When you move into the quantum realm, they're talking about manipulating things at the atomic level. And even then, as I think it was at CERN was the article. They produced an article where they were talking about it, and it's the magic particle is what they were talking about,
Yeah.
because they sit there watching it and they're like, we know it's repeatable. We know it happens every single time, but they can't see when it happens. And that's where they start talking about the element of um, Schrodinger's cat, and how you don't know until you're able to see it,
Yeah, yeah.
the observer effect. And what I believe is going to happen when we hit that point of Q day, as everyone's calling it,
Q day. Okay.
Q day, um, it's going to be that moment of you can't fake it anymore.
I mean, let me just shine some light on here because it's just raw. Recognize authentic wisdom. Q raw think is quantum raw. Recognize quantum authenticity.
Mhm.
It's so yeah. I have like somewhat of a hunch. I have to kind of like dig into it more, but
Mhm.
in relation to the whole observer effect. So my thinking is, if you take, let's say, the smartest, the most intellectual person, and you give them a tool that can enhance their intelligence to unlimited potential, that one person has observed unlimited potential. Now, if they can simply share the idea of that in such a way that it can be perceived, then it's possible. We just have to build it. And it hasn't been possible to actually achieve an idea like that where the most intellectual person on earth could ever get to that point until the race for AGI, for super AGI, and all that stuff. So then you take, the whole the recursive learning idea. That's something I thought about like a year ago, where you just put these things on autopilot. So then you say you have either the most, you got that scientist or that researcher using the best AI, whether it's Anthropic or OpenAI or everyone else in the game, Meta's up to whatever they got going on, but Deep Seek, we could go all around. But these people are the first ones to like see that, how they like to think of it as the next atomic bomb, the next they are the first ones to observe what's really possible. And then normally what happens right after that, they close it, they put the lightning in a bottle, and now they gotta personally experiment with it. What can it do? Was they gotta drill out all of the resources out of it, get in their greedy little paws. That's how we got here. So then it's the idea that we found ourselves in a situation that we could actually cause the same outcome or create an inverse reaction to all of the fuckery that has happened throughout all of history, and we can just start fresh on a clean slate. Yeah, all because of that magic. Hey, come on, you're just throwing a word
So,
on, you're describing things you can't actually like speak openly about. Not you, but them.
yeah, and um a lot of the a lot of what people think, perceive, um what they are looking at artificial intelligence to go, "Oh, look, it can do X, Y, or Z." Um it is an echo chamber of the information that it has access to. And in that, it cannot do anything that humans can't already do. So it has to have the information. It can just learn it a lot faster. Something that, you know, took me 20 years to figure out and be able to piece together why, you know, X and Y connect together in order to take care of C, it can do in a matter of seconds.
I got a question. Have y'all have has even maybe in the research field actually observing, analyzing, let's say you get 100 people and you get them all to use, a certain AI for 3 months, and they're all going to ask the same type of query, the same question, but it's let's say 10 people. That's 10 people's plenty. And they're all going to get asked the same prompt daily and for 30 days. Like, we'll keep it short. and to see if they're actual, whether it's, whether it's measuring the intelligence, not of them, because they're still just the gene pool of
Mhm.
muck, but if their AI has gone any better or worse, because we could talk about how much they allow you to, like, their pipeline of what they're allowing you to use. Well, there's different scales on it. You pay to
Mhm.
play, you can pay to get more access to what can you make versus those limited, or the entry level. So is that something that's maybe should be looked into?
So, as far as how I've seen it used and essentially trained, as it was kind of released from the programmers to the workforce. So at the user level, no one has said, hey, this is what we need you to do. What they have said is, hey, here's this tool, play around with it, see what you can do with it. And in that, there are lots of different things you can do with information. Understanding that information and uh, how did you get the information? Where did you get the information from? What format is that information in? All of those other questions are going to limit what can and can't be done. And then on top of that, the various models. So my personal AI of choice is Lumo. Lumo is not Lumo. It's done by Proton. It is text based only. So it does not do any of the graphics. It doesn't do any of the music or create anything beyond the text based information. And
Now, is
with
that a
that,
benefit? Yeah, is that a benefit or a limitation?
so what we come to is, even we'll start with Meta. So Meta's AI is built off of the Llama, which is open source. So the way any new software works is basically all the programmers have access to open source code, and they take all of it and play with it, try to figure out what they can make it do. They close the network. So you've got open networks and you have closed networks. So each platform now has their closed code. The very, very basics of their code started out as open source, but how it has morphed and changed is what makes it unique and makes it um, able to do certain things. It also is based off of what information it has scraped off of the internet.
So
And
when you,
that's
yeah.
where the ethical question comes in. So, if an artist has a unique style of art and they have post pictures of their art online in, to sell their art, whatever, and the particular AI that is now crawling the web, scraping all of this information that it allows it to scrape, can now reproduce that image as a style of art, that's where the question of who owns the intellectual property. And at this moment, the way artificial intelligence governance is written is basically anything created from artificial intelligence is considered open source and you can't like copyright it. Um, the ability to copyright something is really, in my opinion, it's the element of um, like how people just maintain a particular style. So, like Nintendo and their games, all of their images and stuff are copyrighted and trademarked and all of that stuff in order to prevent others from making money off of those items. Open source stuff, anyone could use it to make anything they want, to do anything they want. And that is the great thing about open source stuff. But if someone has not officially, given the okay to use their, information, style, whatever,
Why can't everybody just share the code together? Why can't we just make that God algorithm?
because there are a lot of people that suck. No, it comes down to that almighty dollar of my product is going to be better than your product. How is my product better than your product? Because of the intellectual property that is secured, because that's what it comes down to, is the intellectual property that each of the software, engineers and whatnot have collected. And when I say collected, I mean collected over, the computer, or computers have been running since the 70s. The first internet, which was ARPANET, was in 69, I believe. The World Wide Web was started in 99. So,
So
that alone.
where do you see us headed to now in 2026 and the agentic era?
The
You know
agentic
what?
era.
We got war in the Middle East, we got chip shortages, we got everybody merging together and tons of media corporations assuming people, I don't know what,
So,
what's the big pivot here for our
okay.
viewers out there?
Do
Can you
you really want to hear my conspiracy theory of the artificial minds?
more like what good good graces can you provide everyone out there to have some sort of some intellectual property going into 2026?
Exactly. And that's really what it comes down to is um all of the tech bros have created various platforms for you to send out your intellectual property. And they have stipulated that, hey, no, you can absolutely keep your intellectual property. However, if it's on my platform, I can use it to train, I can use it to whatever, and I get a cut of your money. So the way the creator um, economy, that's the word I was looking for, the creator economy is all that taking essentially pennies off the top just to maintain the system.
Okay.
But if you get enough people, the pennies off the top no one's going to really notice. And now I have a ton of money that I can then continue to use and continue to. Well, on top of that, we have the world of hackers. And the second an organization starts, you know, being more and more of a threat, um, individuals are going to start looking into it and try to take data off that platform. As soon as they take it off that platform, now the question comes, what is happening to that data? If it ends up on, basically information to the highest bidder, and you are piecing together the story of the world in order to determine individual worth of people to go, hey,
Your
my
old
people
your
are,
OS system for the God rhythm, the God algorithm.
yes,
Ah,
yes, yes, yes. So it all comes into who has the most information as those at the top buy and sell and trade our information, because Doge, we know Doge grabbed all of the social security data, and it's somewhere on some flash drive that someone might have somewhere. um, but when you think of warfare over time and the various artifacts that have gone missing over time, and the worth of just the information, um, you have grave robbers essentially who are now wanting to leverage that information to either, find gold at the bottom of the ocean, and their, submersive ends up collapsing, or you have individuals who are now taking that information and going after the elderly, and that I'm not a fan of,
yeah.
where they'll manipulate grandparents who haven't heard from their grandkids, and they'll call, hey grandma, you know I'm in jail, I need money, can you send me money? And next thing you know, grandma's lost the, last pennies she had to live on because.
Well, I think it was kind of a telltale sign during COVID when it might not have looked like it on the surface that half of the elderly population got axed, and then it's okay. Now, what can we really do? And now we have the new invisible
Mhm.
disease called AI. I guess I guess the pressing question to leave our listeners with and our viewers is, would a one god algorithm for the world be the solution we need? And might as well just throw in there too, one currency. Is that the final solution to humanity's problems, or is there an underlying layer of authenticity that needs to be revealed to prove that there are different methods to our madness as humans?
Are we
Fairy
going to leave it
Godmother,
there?
yeah, we are. Fairy Godmother, L, thank you very much for coming on the show. Thank you for your time.
Absolutely.
Um, Everybody, keep it real, stay raw. This is It's Just Raw. Peace, people. Love y'all. Take care. Stay real. Stay authentic. Recognize authentic wisdom. Bye bye.